In Argentina, the police repressed demonstrators in Córdoba that were peacefully protesting against the neoliberal decree imposed by President Javier Milei. Intense Israeli bombardment of several areas in the Gaza Strip has claimed the lives of 390 Palestinians and injured more than 700 in the past 48 hours, according to health officials. And in China, the death toll from the 6.2 magnitude earthquake that hit the provinces of Gansu and Qinghai on Monday night has risen to 144. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Argentina, the police repressed a peaceful demonstration in Córdoba against the neoliberal decree imposed by President Javier Milei. During Thursday night, police officers repressed with pepper gas and rubber bullets hundreds of demonstrators who were protesting in the center of the capital of the province of Córdoba. Local media reported that at least 12 people were arrested and several injured. The protest expressed its rejection to the decree of necessity and urgency announced by ultra-right Milei, which proposes a deep deregulation of the economy, lays the foundations for the privatization of public companies, and repeals laws and regulations that protect essential rights of Argentines. And at the same time, for the second consecutive night in Buenos Aires, a crowd of people demonstrated in front of the Congress of the nation. Shouting they should all go away, the demonstrators demanded the legislative power to reject the package of measures that threaten the working class. The cacerolazos and demonstrations were replicated in hundreds of cities of the country, such as Rosario, Santa Fe, Mar del Plata, Mendoza, Junín, and Esquel. The delegation of the government of Venezuela for the dialogues in Mexico celebrated the release of diplomat Alex Saab, as well as the strength of the government of President Nicolás Maduro and the determination of the people to rescue him. The coordinator of the Venezuelan government delegation for the dialogue and president of the parliament, Jorge Rodriguez, assured that sooner rather than later it had to be known who was responsible for the crimes against humanity against this diplomat. For his part, Saab indicated that after 1,286 days of illegally holding him unlawfully, they have not been able to prove a single crime nor a single evidence against him nor against Venezuela. In that respect, Rodriguez pointed out that Venezuela undertook an arduous, hard, and difficult negotiation for more than 2 years. He added that behind the scene there was an immense effort for Alex Saab's defense.
We want to express in this talk, in this meeting with the media, our deepest happiness, our greatest joy. Our perception that with the perseverance and strength of the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, the strength of President Nicolás Maduro, and the determination of all Venezuelans, men and women, we have achieved what was once considered an almost impossible task, the rescue of a diplomat.
In this context, the Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab stressed that Venezuela is living a historic moment by confirming that dialogues are more fruitful than hatred.
To all those who in one way or another were involved in bringing me home, as Dr. Jorge commented, Jorge said a few minutes ago, I was kidnapped, tortured, isolated, slandered, defamed. And after 1,286 days, they could not prove a single crime. They could not present a single piece of evidence. Not against me, not against Venezuela. This is a historic moment in which Venezuela reasserts itself as the only way, with the firm conviction of President Nicolás Maduro that dialogue bears greater fruit than hatred.
And we go to Ecuador, where the National Assembly did not approve the criminal prosecution of former Vice President Jorge Glass for alleged overpricing in the contracting of public works in the reconstruction of Manabí. With 48 negative votes, the plenary of the Assembly does not give way to the prosecution of Glass. The organic law of the legislative function of Ecuador states that at least 92 votes are required for this type of case. The case for which the former vice president was to be tried was related to the construction of a road in Manabí after the earthquake that affected that province in 2016. In Cuba, the 10th legislature of the National Assembly of People's Power of Cuba approved objectives and goals of the economic plan for the year 2024 amidst debates on the needs and opportunities for the economic revival. In the presence of the leader of the revolution, Raúl Castro, and the president of the republic, Miguel Díaz-Canel, the deputies debated the economic results for the year 2023. Considering that they were well below expectations, the legislative body emphasized the need to revitalize the nation's production of goods and services to obtain economic growth. In this sense, the Prime Minister, Manuel Marrero Cruz, referred to the strategic need to eliminate subsidies without leaving vulnerable sectors unprotected.
We have to bring it closer to the exchange rate and raise the price of gasoline proportionally in the national currency. For this, we have taken into account several things. You may say that this will have a direct impact on the population. Well, decisions have been taken. Private transport will be protected. There are municipalities that depend on trucks and buses for private transportation. So we will not apply the new rates to them, but with the guarantee that prices will not increase. And then certain sectors of the population will be protected.
The Cuban Prime Minister, Manuel Marrero Cruz, also made reference to a fact that he defined as unusual related to the cost of fuel on the island for numerous tourists who visit it.
Look for a country in the world that can buy 9 liters of gasoline with $1. We're giving ourselves that luxury, and that has to end. How is it possible that in a country that promotes tourism, the tourists come to pay subsidized gasoline at 30 pesos a liter? Therefore, we're going to start charging gasoline in dollars to all tourists and international visitors.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Intense Israeli bombardment of several areas in the Gaza Strip has claimed the lives of 390 Palestinians and injured more than 700 in the past 48 hours, according to health officials. At least 6 civilians were killed on Friday in an airstrike on a house in eastern Khan Yunis, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. Several wounded, including a baby, were taken to the Nasser hospital. Attacks were also reported in Rafah, a Nuseirat refugee camp. In the north of the Strip, 9 other people were killed, including a mother and her 5 children, in an attack on a house in the Jabalia refugee camp. According to health officials, 20,057 people have been martyred and more than 53,000 people wounded after 77 days of total Israeli siege on the besieged Palestinian enclave. And the United Nations Organization's Global Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Partnership warned that Gaza faces critical levels of food insecurity in the region. According to the agency, 93% of the population of the Gaza Strip faces critical hunger rates with insufficient food and high levels of malnutrition. It further noted that the lack of food is impacting the proliferation of disease throughout the enclave, especially among children, pregnant, and lactating women and the elderly. It is worth mentioning that due to the devastation caused by the war and the Israeli blockade against the Palestinian city, basic supplies have been critically scarce for the Gazan population since October 7th. And the Israeli bombardment, ground operations, and besiegement of the entire population in the Gaza Strip have caused catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. Around 85% of the population is displaced and currently concentrated into an increasingly smaller geographical area. The information was provided by a report of the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, which assured that over 90% of the population in the Gaza Strip, about 2.08 million people, is estimated to face high levels of acute food insecurity. Even though the levels of malnutrition and non-trauma related mortality might not have yet crossed famine thresholds, these are typical of outcomes of prolonged and extreme food consumption gaps. The increased nutritional variability of the children, pregnant and breastfeeding women, and the elderly is particularly a source of concern, said the report. The Israeli occupation forces resumed their mass detention campaigns in the West Bank, arresting more than 4,655 Palestinians since the beginning of the occupation's aggression on October 7th. A joint press release issued by various prisoners groups said most of the detentions were concentrated in Hebron, with more than 1,000 Palestinian citizens detained. According to the document, more than 260 children have been arrested, in addition to around 160 women, including those from the 1948 occupied land. The press release added that 46 journalists have been detained, 32 remain in custody, whereas 20 of them were placed under administrative arrest. The Israeli occupation forces have so far refused to reveal any details about the number and the fate of the detainees from Gaza. And the Palestine telecommunications company announced tonight the gradual restoration of communication services in the central and southern Gaza Strip after it went out of service on Wednesday for the 6th time since the beginning of the Israeli aggression on October 7th. Occupation forces also destroyed during its aggression the generators powering the main division from the Han Yunis in the south of the Gaza Strip, it said. Israeli warplanes once again bombed the main fiber optic internet line in the Strip, causing a complete interruption of communication and internet services, according to the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. Technical teams are having great difficulty repairing the damage due to the extensive destruction of the infrastructure left by the Israeli aggression. Entitled "The Food Industry is the Way to Agricultural and Economic Recovery," Damascus hosts the Syrian Economic Dialogue Forum on Thursday, December 21st, a meeting that is part of the Syrian government's effort to overcome the economic crisis the country is suffering as a result of the war and the blockade. Let's see.
The forum is a space for economic dialogue between the relevant members of the Syrian cabinet and the heads of the professional unions, presidents of chambers of commerce and industry, and economic actors in the country. The main objective of the meeting is to boost the food industry because of its vital importance in the recovery and development of the national economy, achieve self-sufficiency and food security, earn foreign exchange, and ensure more job opportunities.
We are looking through this meeting to regulate the relationship between the industrialists and the agricultural sector in order to ensure the appropriate products for the food industry and other products that meet the demand of the local market and abroad with a high quality to improve the level of export, taking into account that export is of vital importance to the Syrian economy, especially that agricultural products currently account for more than 80% of the volume of Syrian exports. This National Economic Dialogue meeting takes takes place in order to exchange views and ideas, to establish visions and develop work plans on which we can rely on in the next stage to solve the problems facing the Syrian national economy due to the multiple internal and external factors with negative compounding effect.
The participants discussed with transparency the challenges resulting from multiple internal and external factors led by the consequences of more than 12 years of war and foreign-imposed blockade. To solve these problems, the participants considered that close coordination between the country's authorities and the economic, industrial, and commercial players within the framework of a constructive partnership between the public and private sectors was essential.
Without a doubt, the great obstacle we face lies in the blockade and the coercive measures of the West, and we are always looking for ways to evade sanctions, but this implies an additional cost to the state, to the industrialists, and to the citizens in terms of exports and imports, and this is a hard reality that we are trying to overcome, and that is why we continue working and looking for solutions through meetings like this one. We have internal problems as well as challenges imposed by foreign countries, and both affected in one way or another negatively the industrial sector and consequently the country's economy, and we hope that through dialogue we can determine the points of weakness and strength in our economy and determine the possibilities we have at hand to overcome the negative aspects.
The industrial sector in Syria experienced heavy losses amounting to $60 billion as a result of the terrorist war against the nation, and 70% of the country's industrial capacity was completely destroyed. This is the damage that the country's economic, commercial, and industrial players are trying to repair with hard and planned work on the basis of the results of forums such as this one.
TeleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In China, the death toll from a 6.2 magnitude earthquake that hit the provinces of Gansu and Qinghai on Monday night has risen to 144. The authorities of the Gansu province explained during a press conference that 784 injured people are receiving medical attention in the region's hospital. The incident also caused the collapse of more than 155,000 houses and severely affected water, electricity, telecommunications, and transport services. The Chinese government, together with the Ministry of Emergency Management, decreed a level 2 response, and 200 million yuan have been allocated for the relief and recovery efforts. In the Czech Republic, a 24-year-old student killed more than 15 people and wounded dozens more at a Prague university on Thursday, and this is considered the country's worst shooting in decades. The shooting erupted at the Charles University's Faculty of Arts, assured authorities after confirming the attacker was eliminated. The deadly violence in the city's historic center sparked evacuations, a massive response by heavily armed police, and warnings for people to stay indoors. Emergency services reported 9 serious injuries, at least 5 mid-serious, and up to 10 light injuries. Czech Interior Minister Vít Rakušan added that there was no link between the shooting and the international terrorism. He added that no other gunman had been confirmed and called on police to follow police instructions.
V tuto chvíli my víme, že
At the moment, we know that more than 15 people have lost their lives in this tragic event, and we know that at least 24 have been wounded.
Minimálně 24 lidí bylo. Ve 14:59 jsme obdrželi
At 13:59 hours GMT, we received the first information about the shooting in the Faculty of Arts building here in the Palace Square. The first police units were here within minutes. The rapid response unit was here in 12 minutes.
Jednotka zde byla za 12 minut a v 15:20 jsme obdrželi od
At 14:20 hours GMT, the police officers in action told us there was the motionless body of the gunman on the ledge of the building.
nachází bezvládné tělo střelce. A my v tuhletu chvíli nemáme finální informace.
We don't have all information as of now, and we have not even started to identify the dead, because the area must first and foremost be safe for us to
Pro
enter.
nás čistý, pro ostatní bezpečný.
In this context, Czech Prime Minister Peter Fiala expressed his condolences to the families of the victims of Thursday's shooting at Prague University and declared a day of national mourning on December 23rd in honor of the memory of the dead.
I would like to once again express my sincere condolences to the families and the bereaved of all victims and wish all the wounded a speedy recovery. We are all shocked by the horrendous act, and it is hard to find the words to express condemnation on the one hand and, on the other, the pain and sorrow that our entire society is feeling in these days before Christmas. December 23 will be a day of national mourning to honor the memory of the victims of this unprecedented gunman attack in Prague.
Tunisia is interested in importing more Russian grain, and Moscow is prepared to meet the North African country's demand. The announcement was made in Tunis by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov during a press conference on Thursday. According to Lavrov, Russia and Tunisia are planning to expand their bilateral cooperation, particularly with respect to the agriculture and energy sectors. The Russian top diplomat also stated that both countries have decided to speed up the entry into force of an agreement of the peaceful use of nuclear energy. The foreign minister also announced that an intergovernmental commission on trade, economic, scientific, and technical cooperation will be held by Russia and Tunisia during the first half of 2024, where the discussion will center around the conclusion of a free trade zone agreement. And during his meeting with his Tunisian counterpart Nabil Amar, Lavrov said that the League of Arab States was one of the poles of the multipolar world which is being objectively formed.
You develop partnerships with a country without compromising partnerships with other states. This also corresponds to our traditions. Russia never makes friends with someone against someone. Unfortunately, our Western colleagues have been prone to making friends in opposition to others. I think that life will make everything fall into place. We will inevitably come to an understanding of peaceful coexistence in a multipolar world, which is being objectively formed. One of the poles of which we can now confidently say is the League of Arab States.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.